I have a lot of clocks and clock radios. Okay, definitely a lot. Okay, maybe more than a lot. And that is not even half. Well, okay, maybe it is half. I don't actually know how many clocks and clock radios I own. Just that it is a fairly obscene number. And that most of them are not actually set up. Some of them are still visible, but a lot of them are not. As a little bit of a sidebar, we're getting really close to New Year's, which means you won't have to wait too much longer to get to know just how many of these things that I've got. But I had to start somewhere. There had to have been one of these things that got me started. Which one do you suppose that is? Stay tuned, and you're going to find out. Or I guess you could look at the video title and it would tell you. Here it is, the unit that got everything started. The National Panasonic model number RC-65B alarm clock radio. On the surface, there doesn't really appear to be too much that's terrifically interesting about this unit. Looks like just your average wood grain, well, faux wood grain plastic clock radio from the 1980s or 1990s. Fairly cheap, at $5. Well, I don't think a lot of people think that $5 is cheap. This seems to be the going rate, or at least it used to be the going rate for clock radios of pretty much all kinds. In recent times, the price has skyrocketed to about $7 or $8 per unit, which I don't think is very thrifty, but what are you going to do? That's why I haven't bought a whole lot of clock radios in recent times. But the one thing that sets this apart from anything else is the presence of the vacuum fluorescent display, and a couple of things I didn't even notice when I picked it up that we'll take a look at here in a minute. This was the primary reason. This vacuum fluorescent display that the camcorder is not focusing on. That's how you get it to focus. Put it in manual focus mode. You'll see here it's a fairly standard vacuum fluorescent display. There's not a whole lot that's terrifically different about it. It's got your alarm and sleep indications, AM, PM. Looks like there were provisions for 24-hour time, but this unit does not take advantage of that. Perhaps there were some that did. A fairly pedestrian-looking tuning dial. It's not even backlit. Or if it is backlit, the backlight has died a long time ago, because it hasn't worked while I've had it. Go ahead and have a look at the top here. We can see the doze button, the national logo, sleep, time set buttons, alarm set, a selector for what you want to wake to, radio or buzzer. You can't have both, but that's fine. Most people, well, I don't really wake to both. I always wake to the buzzer. The radio wouldn't wake me up. Manual control for turning on the radio. Volume control, which is turned up all the way. We'll see why here in just a bit. The AM/FM band switch. On this side, we have brightness control. It's not infinitely variable, it's just low and high. It's set to low right now because I always set my vacuum fluorescent display-based clock radios to low to try and preserve their displays for at least a little bit. I'm not sure if it really does anything, but it's a thought that counts, I guess, right? And then here, of course, is the tuning dial. On the back, we don't have anything. On the bottom is where things get really interesting. This in and of itself really isn't too interesting. It's a 6-watt AM/FM clock radio made by Matsushita Electric Corporation Limited, or maybe that's Company Limited, I don't remember. Made in Japan, patent number. A warning telling us not to open the unit because there are no user serviceable parts inside. We have an FM antenna connection. Unfortunately, there's no connection for any sort of AM antenna, so you're stuck with the internal loop stick. But at least if you want to have an FM antenna, you're covered on that one. Something that you will not see on most clock radios, a power selector from 110 to 125 volts, or 220 to 240 volts. That's odd, since here in North America, at least, the majority of places use 120 volts. Also, you all use 60 hertz, but yet here up here, well, before the focus completely lost it, we've got a 50 or 60 hertz selector. Which leads me to wonder if maybe this is not a domestic unit. I don't see any German, I don't see any Japanese, I don't see any other foreign languages on it. But I've also noticed I don't see French on it either. So, it's possibly not from the Canadian market. But I don't really know where this would have come from. I don't know any of the history behind it. It'd really be interesting if this came from overseas. We've got a time set button switch down here for both locking and adjusting. Cosmetically, there really isn't a whole lot to really say. I mean, it's got some dings and dents. I mean, you can see them. Some of them are pretty obvious. Of course, they'd be even more obvious if the camcorder would focus on them. At least I've now confirmed what camcorder doesn't focus properly. So, I guess there's one thing. And there's some dirt. But overall, it's not in too bad a shape. Is it collector grade? No, probably not. But for $5, you can't really ask for a whole lot. And I've seen some units in worse shape that command at far higher price points. Let me go ahead and plug this thing in. Okay, we have two problems with this unit. The first one is readily obvious right now. I've plugged the unit in, but the display is not on. If I wiggle the port set at the back, you can see it comes on and goes out. In a rather dangerous fashion. Yes, the cord set is loose. I am going to need to fix that. I don't know where the fault lies, probably in the connection to the transformer. Hopefully it won't be too difficult to fix that. Just a little bit of soldering, and Bob's your uncle. And in this case, he is my uncle. Anyway, is this actually in set mode right now? No, so I'm going to put that into set mode. As such, I've got the cord strung down here so that way it doesn't shut off. You can see that we can willy-nilly set these however we please. And if I switch that over to lock, we can no longer do so. You can, however, still set the alarm. And you can see the sleep timer. You may or may not be able to hear the second issue with this particular unit. We'll get into that here in just a few minutes. Let's go ahead and listen to the radio. We're in AM mode right now. Actually, no, we're not. We're in FM mode right now. Just have a careful listen here. See if we can get it tuned to a station. can hear that very clearly. What's that? Now, some people might jump to the conclusion that the speaker is blown, and maybe they're right. I haven't investigated. But I think something else is going on. I think what's actually happening here is dust has made its way below the dust cap. It happens sometimes, especially when it's facing up like this and there's very little protection for the speaker. When you can see, dust can just fall right in there. So I may need to take the speaker out and vacuum it, or maybe put it upside down and blast the speaker for a few hours. I don't know, I've never actually done that. I've been meaning to, but I haven't. But until I do that, of course, the radio isn't very usable. Put it into AM mode. Can't even tell when it's tuned because it just sounds like crap. So I'm going to go ahead and set off the alarm. And I'm going to do it the cheating way. And you can hear it comes to the speaker as well. So it's also messed up. It's not volume controllable though. And you don't get the radio silently. Some of these things, when you have it set on buzzer, the radio comes on as well. But not this one. The last thing that I'm going to say about this unit has to do with the build quality. If there's one thing I think I can knock Panasonic on, it is the build quality of this particular unit. Somebody had told me, and I don't remember who it was or where they had said this, this front little plastic piece is very easy to break off. And I could certainly see how that may be true. Because this looks and feels fairly flimsy. Of course, if that minor little problem is the only thing that's wrong with it, and I think that it is, this thing is not doing too bad. It's a very nice clock radio, and it'll be even nicer when I figure out what's wrong with the power cord, and when I also get the speaker cleaned out and working the way that it is, or replace the speaker if it turns out to be bad. But there you go. There is the Panasonic, the National Panasonic, I should say, RC-65B clock radio. The clock radio that started it all. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, do feel free to leave them down below. And this is CP666 signing off, and I'll see you next time. Till then, even though it's not worth watching, I have posted a link to the original video in the video description.